Hey there and welcome. So today we're jumping into some source material you've shared with us, really zeroing in on the cryptocurrency market. Specifically, we're going to explore what some analysts are thinking about potential opportunities in certain alternative tokens right now. We've got this analysis and some related market info you sent over, and the idea is really just to unpack it all and pull out the key insights for you.
Exactly. And looking through these sources, there's definitely a perspective here on, the current market. It suggests we might be heading into a new phase.
A new phase. Interesting.
Yeah, and this view, according to the analysis, is really influenced by what they see as improving regulatory clarity
Okay.
and also growing institutional interest in the crypto space. These are seen as pretty significant factors potentially reshaping things.
Right. Okay. So let's explore that a bit more then. The core idea in this analysis seems, well, pretty compelling. It's suggesting a select group of tokens could be looking at really significant gains. We're talking potentially 10x or even more in what the source is calling a multi-year supercycle.
And the why behind that belief, at least in this source, ties directly back to those points we just mentioned.
The regulation and institutions.
Exactly. The analyst seems to think clearer rules and more big players coming in create this sort of foundational shift,
Yeah.
one that could actually support that kind of sustained growth over the next few years.
Okay, so with that positive context set, let's get into the specific tokens they highlight in the analysis you shared. First one is Aave, A-A-V-E.
Yep.
So looking at the numbers here from the source, trading around, what, $284.82?
About that.
Seen a little dip, maybe 3% down in the past day. But if you look at the last month, it's up a solid 24%.
And that monthly gain comes after a much bigger run since April. The source notes Aave climbed around 180% since then.
Wow.
Yeah, even hit $312 recently. That was its highest point since February, apparently.
180% since April. That's quite something. And the analysis also flags a specific technical thing for Aave. It formed a golden cross.
Yes, the golden cross. And, in technical analysis, that's generally viewed pretty positively.
Right, bullish.
Bullish, yeah. It's where a shorter-term moving average, like the 50-day, crosses above a longer-term one, say the 200-day, suggests potential upward momentum.
Okay.
So according to the source, this technical signal contributes to their target for Aave, which they put at $398.
$398. So that's what, about a 28% gain from where it is now?
Roughly, yes.
Yeah.
Provided they note it holds above a key support level at $282.
Got it. Okay, moving on then. The analysis also talks about Maker, NKR.
Maker.
Source puts its current price at $1,885. Similar story to Aave recently, down a bit, about 5% in 24 hours.
True, but if you look at Maker just over the past 2 weeks, the picture's a bit brighter there. It's actually up around 17%.
Oh, okay.
And the analysis includes a specific prediction here, targeting $2,512 by July 13th. That'd be a pretty decent jump.
$2,512. That is significant.
Yeah, and they even give a potential range for that date, somewhere between $1,879 and $2,570.
So even if the immediate feeling for Maker is a bit mixed with that daily dip,
Right?
the analyst behind this view seems pretty optimistic for July, looking at potential gains up to 35%, maybe an average target near $2,475 if things continue.
And I think what's interesting there is how those higher price targets for makers, despite the recent dip, really fit that overall positive theme the analyst has. They're seeing potential for significant growth ahead.
Okay, next one mentioned is Maple Finance, ticker SYRUP.
Maple Finance, right?
According to the material you shared, it's trading around $0.482, and it was down just over 3% when this analysis was put together.
Yeah. But compared to some of the others, Maple Finance has actually had a really strong run over the past month. The analysis says it's up around 60%.
60% in a month. That definitely catches the eye.
Mm-hmm.
The source also points out some key levels for Maple Finance. Support identified at $0.46 and resistance at $0.152.
Yeah. And it suggests that if trading volume picks up, the price could potentially push higher, maybe towards 55 cents.
Okay.
And the fact the analysis specifically calls out Maple Finance's big recent gain kind of highlights that even within this group of tokens, performance isn't uniform. Some are already showing that momentum they seem to be looking for.
Fair point. Okay, let's turn to Ethena now, ENA.
Ethena.
Source lists its price at $0.2931. Now, this one had seen a bigger recent drop, right? Down over 10% in 24 hours, according to the source.
It did. But despite that short-term price action, the analysis seems to focus on a key technical pattern.
Oh.
It notes Ethena was testing the upper boundary of what's known as a descending channel on its daily chart.
A descending channel. Why is testing the upper boundary significant here?
Well, a descending channel itself is usually seen as bearish price trending down between two lines.
Right.
But testing that upper resistance line suggests the possibility of a breakout from the pattern. And breaking out of a descending channel is often seen as a strong bullish signal. It could mean a trend reversal, maybe significant upward movement.
Okay. So the potential reversal is the key. And if that breakout happens...
If it happens, the source lays out several potential price targets. Severed 45 cents first, then possibly 63 cents, and maybe even up to 95.
Wow, those are pretty substantial jumps from its current price point.
They are, and those targets really depend on that technical breakout happening. It shows how the analysis is using these chart patterns to spot potential turning points and, that upside potential they seem to believe in.
Gotcha. Okay, another token mentioned is Euler, EUL.
Euler, right.
Source gives its price as $7.51, and it notes recent dips here too, down 7.3% in 24 hours, and about, 15.78% over the past month?
And the analysis also points out that Euler is currently trading below its 50-day and 200-day simple moving averages, the SMAs.
Which usually signals?
Usually interpreted as a bearish trend, yeah, short to medium term.
Okay, so that seems a bit contradictory, doesn't it? A bearish signal, but it's on this list of potential opportunities.
It does seem that way initially.
But then the source also gives some much higher potential future targets. It mentions a short-term recovery target, maybe to $16.10 by the end of June.
Yeah, and an even longer-term one, like $27.32 by the end of 2027.
So how does the analysis square that bearish trend now, but big potential later?
It's interesting. It looks like the analysis acknowledges the current technical weakness, that bearish signal from the SMAs, but still holds these significantly higher recovery and long-term targets. It suggests maybe that the analysts' longer-term fundamental belief in Euler, or perhaps how it fits into their broader supercycle idea, kind of overrides the current chart picture for future potential.
Okay. Makes sense in that context. Finally, let's look at Pendle.
Pendle, yeah.
Source material puts its price around $3.83, down about 1.5% in the past day.
Now, the outlook presented here for Pendle in July is, a bit more muted compared to some of the others we've discussed. The analysis expects it might just stay around $3.69. It notes only a small chance of it rising slightly.
Really? Just holding steady?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It even mentions a really tight range, like $3.68 to $3.07, where maybe some short-term traders might look for movement.
So that really highlights that even within this analyst's overall positive frame, the expectations aren't the same across the board. Pendle's short-term outlook here is much more modest than, say, Maker or Ethena in the same analysis.
Exactly. It shows some variation in their perspective on timing and magnitude, even for the tokens they selected.
And beyond those main ones, the analysis also gave a quick nod to a couple of others, Uniswap and Superverse.
That's right, just brief mentions. For Superverse, the source specifically noted it's quietly preparing for something called black hole.
Black hole! Okay,
Yeah.
Not much more detail on that in the material you shared, though.
No, not really. Just that mention.
Okay, so let's maybe zoom out a bit. The source material also touched on the broader market environment, sort of like answering some common questions.
It did, yeah. One thing it addressed was just the general state of the crypto market today when this was written.
And what did it say?
According to the source, it was generally down. Overall market cap saw a dip. Bitcoin itself was down maybe 2.5%. And as we saw with the daily changes on some of these altcoins, many of them had even bigger drops. The source sort of attributes this dip to things like geopolitical tensions, global uncertainty, the usual suspects sometimes.
Right. And what about altcoin season? That term pops up a lot. How does the source explain it?
It defines altcoin season pretty straightforwardly.
Yeah.
It's a period when altcoins, basically the cryptos, other than Bitcoin, significantly outperform Bitcoin.
Okay.
And this often happens, they explain, when Bitcoin's share of the total market value, its dominance, starts to decrease. That suggests capital is flowing out of Bitcoin and into these other tokens.
Got it. And based on the specific analysis, does it give a view on whether right now might be a good time to consider investing in altcoins?
It offers a perspective, yes. Drawing directly from the source, it suggests that altcoin dominance, as a metric, is nearing some key support levels on the charts. And their interpretation of that is it could indicate a potential rebound for altcoins relative to Bitcoin is coming. So from that viewpoint, yeah, they suggest that positioning might make it a strategic entry point for considering altcoin investments. But again, that's the perspective laid out in this material we reviewed.
Okay, understood. So just to recap quickly from what we've pulled out of these sources, we looked at this analysis's take on potential opportunities in specific tokens like Aave, Maker, Maple Finance, Ethena, Euler, and Pendle.
hmm Plus those brief mentions of Uniswap and Superverse.
Right. And the overall framing from the source seems pretty positive about the potential for future gains, even mentioning that multi-year supercycle. And they tie this outlook heavily to increasing institutional interest and clearer regulations.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary. Despite the day-to-day ups and downs, the analyst presenting this view sees a positive long-term path for certain altcoins, driven by those bigger structural shifts happening in the market, the regulation, the institutional adoption they highlight.
And for you listening, our aim here was really just to quickly but thoroughly unpack this specific analysis you provided, give you a clear sense of the ideas, the data points it's focusing on, and what this particular viewpoint suggests is worth watching in the market right now.
Which leaves us with maybe an interesting thought to chew on, stemming from these sources. How might this improving regulatory landscape and the growing institutional attention that the analysis emphasizes, how might that fundamentally change how altcoin cycles play out in the future compared to past cycles?
Good question.
Or even just thinking about how understanding these concepts like altcoin season or interpreting those technical signals mentioned, like that potential breakout for Athena, how can that maybe inform your own way of looking for opportunities in this, well, still evolving market? Something to consider as you process all this.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for exploring this material with us today.